I was born with a strange gift. The ability to see what no human being has ever seen before. It's all mixed up in my head. The images, the sounds, the smell. I need to remember.
Hi, I'm Susan Arndt, and I'm here with Ludwig Kitzman, who got to play a little bit more of Beyond Two Souls. Now, this is the game that's been getting a lot of attention because it stars genuine movie stars Ellen Page and Willem Dafoe. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
This game has Hollywood written all over it. As you mentioned, it stars Ellen Page as Jodie, who is the protagonist. It also stars Willem Dafoe as Nathan Dawkins. The soundtrack is produced by Hans Zimmer. It's composed by Lorne Balfe. It has so many violins, fantastic acting. It just makes me so emotional.
Goddamn fools.
Okay, so it's getting the Hollywood treatment, but how does that translate into a video game?
Well, I think the idea here is to sort of elicit emotion in the player by accurately recreating it through advanced technology. That's sort of the game's thesis. But the story is about Jodie, who has a guardian angel of sorts. His name is Aiden, and you can control him for most of the game. Aiden is unusual in that he is a second playable character, and he can move through walls and sort of fly around and possess people and manipulate objects. He has a lot more freedom than Jodie does, but it often scares people around her, and the story is really about how she finds a way to deal and control with this power.
Okay, let's start. Kathleen is next door, and she has the same cards as you. And we're gonna get her to choose one and see if you can tell us which one she chose.
So how does controlling the two different characters work? Do you take turns? Do they do different levels? How do they work together?
You just press a button, and at that point you assume the role of Aiden, who is portrayed as a ghostly ball of light tethered to Jodie. One of the early scenes that we saw was a train scene where Jodie is asleep, and you can choose to wake her up before police officers board the train as they attempt to arrest her. If you let her sleep, she's caught unawares when the police finally board the train, and she gets arrested. So it really subverts a whole chase scene that they made right afterward. So if she is awake, you engage in that scene, and it sort of plays out as this dramatic train top fight. And that's also where you get to engage some of the game's combat. Basically, it's a very simple system where you just mimic her movements as she starts them in slow motion by dragging in the same direction on the right analog stick. So you're really just doing swipes across the screen. It's very simple, it's very intuitive. You're not really making any decisions, you're still responding to the action. But as a result, it does appear to be very cinematic, and just like in the movies.
So assuming you've managed to pull off all the controls correctly and you get away, then what happens?
It evolves into this big showdown in town where Jodie's about to be captured by the SWAT members. At this point, she asks Aiden for help, so you start flying around creating chaos. You can flip over cars, you can have a gas pump start leaking and then create a spark to set off a huge explosion. I think it's inevitable at one point you get caught, but it's really sort of how far you drag it out, I think is the secret.
So you said that in the combat you're not really making decisions per se, you're just kind of reacting to things that happen, so is that fun? I mean, is that really engaging gameplay?
I think the quality of the cutscenes and the acting and the music, it kind of draws you in and you feel like you're participating in a very perfunctory way. It's not bad, it's entertaining, but it's obviously entertaining in a way that a normal action game is not. And it does feel like there's a lot more variety just because it's so story driven. So you lose a lot of freedom in this game because of the way that they're approaching the story. It does make it more accessible to general audiences, I think, and it is nice that it's quite unclear how your decisions will play out or how your mistakes will play out, because there aren't a lot of overt video game systems in play. You really just have to get a feel of how the scene is progressing and then react to it. Beyond is definitely a spiritual successor to Heavy Rain in the sense that it treats failure in a different way. There are no hard stops or game over screens. The story sort of just dovetails to an end if you mess up so badly. But what's interesting is that you're never quite sure what is important in a scene, and I think the game works best on a scene-by-scene basis, much like Heavy Rain did. And like that game, its strength is in the individual scenes and being able to figure out what you're able to control, how you're able to affect the scene. how the characters will respond to your decisions, and what you're supposed to pay attention to. I think that's David Cage's main strength, and in this game I think it is brought to a more polished level than before. I don't think this is necessarily the right way to elicit emotion from players, in the sense that I don't feel like I'm truly participating in the story that much, but I definitely see a very strong push to have emotion in very unusual game settings brought to life in this game.
Good, Jody. Anything else in the room you can move?
Well, given what you were saying before about the Hollywood polish that this game has, maybe that's intentional, that it's supposed to feel more like a movie and less like a game.
Yeah, ultimately it is a trade-off. You're getting a impeccable presentation in trade for a loss of agency. But for some people, I think that might be a good palate cleanser. I don't think every single game has to tell its story in the same way. I don't think this is necessarily the best way to do it, but it is different, and maybe that is worth another look.
They invaded the laboratory. Creatures from the depths. I managed to hide, but they're still here. I know they're still here.
Try to get to the elevator. I mean, it's working now. You should be able to get out.
You're staying here? But those things will kill you.
I'm not alone.
We always face death alone.
How about a name? Someone I could contact? You must have family, friends, someone who could tell me who you are. Jason!